My name's Jeff Weber, and I've been making records for 35 years. And my music is a little bit different than everyone else's because I generally try to capture a performance rather than manufacture one. So we'll do a record either live to multi-track or live to 2 tracks with no mixing, editing, or overdubbing. And that creates some amazing opportunities, but it also puts people kind of like, wow, I don't know if I'm really good enough, or can I really do this? Or my comment to that, of course, is always, look, you're going to be performing your materials on stage. Same thing here. All you have to do is do what you do naturally, and we'll take care of the rest. And when we go through the process a little bit, it becomes a lot easier for them to understand, and most of my artists then embrace the concept. I am, of course, a lone wolf in this because everyone else does multi-track and the whole 9 yards. In today's climate of crisis economically, the idea of doing something in a live environment that you can actually fix and change is quite attractive. So I limit my my recordings to of the moment. We go into the finest facilities on the planet, and we'll do no more than 4 songs. There's so much bang for your buck that you can get with doing 4 songs as opposed to 12 or 14 or 10, that there's no need to do more than that because the industry has evolved. I've done about 200 records. I have multiple Grammys. I have multiple Grammy nominations. I've been on the Board of Governors of the Recording Academy for over 20 years. I've been chairman, the Selected Producer of the Year for many years. I do a lot of teaching about how to make records and the industry in general. I've written 2 books about my industry. They are both humor books. The first one is called You've Got a Deal, The Biggest Lies of the Music Business. And the second one is kind of a continuation of that. It's called We'll Get Back to You, Even Bigger Lies of the Music Business. And it contains all the anecdotes and the stories and everything that you might expect. But there's always truth, some truth, in a joke or a story. And this industry is no exception to all of those, those problematic stories. Musicians are cruel, and I find them to be very engaging, and within the confines of this world, it's very much fun. It's a very, very small community. I'll tell you what the thing that just drives me over the wall in terms of interest: a compelling melody line, first and foremost, and lyric content that isn't too derivative. If I can just get heartfelt lyrics with a melody line that I can remember after only hearing it once, that's all I need. A piano vocal, a guitar vocal that's heartfelt, that has a certain level of structure. It doesn't have to be, so typecast into the pop arena or rock arena. Excuse me. It just makes a huge, huge difference if there's a wonderful melody line. And if I said to you, da-da-da-da-da-da, you automatically know what that is. Because whether or not that's a good melody line or a bad melody line, you know that song. Now, whether you've heard it your entire life, which all of us have, it's ingrained in our head. That's the type of thing we're looking for, is a melody line that can be hummed, can be repeated, can be listened to, can be enjoyed repeatedly. And if the lyric isn't the same old, that's terribly exciting. Well, in the days of old, when my hair was actually black and didn't come off at night, producers would take artists under their wing and basically give them a production deal and pay the expenses and then try to recoup their money by getting a record deal for that artist. And that's proven not to have been in the best interest of the artist, because the artist essentially doesn't get the record deal. It's basically the production company. I'm not a really big believer in that. I'm a believer in the fact that says that you, in today's climate, have to have some level of budget. Most people like myself don't go in for spec arrangements or back-end deals or things like that. it's very, very critical that an artist has to come in with the whole thing, with budget, with the wherewithal. I mean, we'll handle the recording and we'll do it at a price that will allow the artist to make his money back. We'll show them differing plans on how they can make their money back. We'll guide and counsel them through the approach to possible friends and family or investors. We'll create schematics that they can use to interest people in helping them fund their recording and give them opportunities for repayment of that money in addition to basically just selling music, because that seems to be right now the least potent way to get an investment back. But there's plenty of other ways to accomplish this task. And part of my responsibility now has become, okay, so how do we educate a person like this? And how do we let them know what's available to them from a recording perspective? But most artists want to know what's going to happen to them afterwards, the what now. Okay, so I managed to scare up money from my friends and family. I managed to convince people to invest in my record. I've made this great record with great people, great production team. Now what? Okay, so then it becomes very, very important for them to understand what happens in the minds of the consumer. Okay, and we go through the whole. I have a whole plan for this because I'm very loyal to my clients. I don't want them to. I don't want to leave them in the lurch. And basically, it all involves the activation of the peer-to-peer recommendation engine. Because let's say, for example, Joseph, you and I have similar tastes, and you say to me, I'm going to recommend that you listen to this group because they are off the charts. As a matter of fact, I bought the CD. I want you to have it. I feel so committed to the excellence of this group that if you listen to it and don't like it, I'll buy it back from you. Okay, so the activation of the peer-to-peer recommendation engine is what sets up a provocation to purchase. Okay, regardless of whether there's a 40-foot banner right outside your window of that particular artist, the whole thing comes down to who are the gatekeepers we trust today. We don't trust radio, we don't trust magazines, but who do we trust? Each other. We are the new gatekeepers. We are the new tastemakers. We are responsible for the people we love in a way. So this activation of the peer-to-peer recommendation engine occurs through public performance. When an artist basically puts out a record, the one thing that he must do is perform publicly. So that would interest, people. Last year, every single sales, let's just say every single aspect of record industry sales declined except for that of public performance. That went up. All we have to do is pay attention to what the public is telling us. We win. The public says, dude, we're not paying $18 for a record where we only like one or two tunes, and by the way, you suck. The public is saying to us, look, we don't want to be told when we want to listen to things. Radio sucks. Okay, so now we're, with the combination of technology, we're making inroads to do things ourselves. Okay, still, the battle used to be distribution. Okay, that's why people wanted major label deals, is because they felt that, okay, they could get, they're the only people that could get their music into the stores. Well, guess what? Within 14 days, any person on the planet can have their music to any person on the planet with a smartphone or a computer. That's not the war. The war is getting people to listen. We have to rise above the noise. A classic example of what the noise is, 38 million tracks on iTunes, that's noise. Okay, the battle now is, how do we get people to listen to you? Well, we have to activate that peer-to-peer recommendation engine. Okay, so that's the philosophy that I have in saying that, okay, so we're going to get the funding, we're going to do the record, but what happens after that so that we can get people interested in purchasing? Okay, we have a cap on our funds, so we know exactly how many units we need to sell to break even. And in my business model, it's 8,000. Okay, so from a production standpoint, if a person is touring 100 shows a year like they have to in my scenario, and they have an internet presence and they have a social media presence, 8,000 units isn't completely out of the question. But what you do get is you get 4 songs that are the best 4 songs, and you use the live shows as labs. You not only introduce those 4 songs, but you also introduce the rest of your set, keeping an eye on what the public likes. Instead of releasing one album a year or a year and a half, because people forget so frequently, you release less songs but with greater frequency. So now, when it comes time 90 to 120 days later to evaluate your CD, you look at various aspects of traction. How did we do with sales? How was the attendance? How were the reviews? You know, what's going on with us? And if there's traction, then you do another 4 songs. So there's always something fresh and new to talk about whenever you do a live show to keep your visibility in the minds of the consumer. And the other thing, the most important thing for me, is understanding every act that I'm involved in has to understand that the most important person in that band is the person who's listening. So every show has to be on time. Every show has to be dramatic and evocative. Every show has to sound good and look good and feel good, so that the value received is the value given, you know, so that when a consumer on his way out says, wow, that was a great show, wow, and the artist is at the merch table conversing with the fans, conversing with people who are buying the CDs, now there's this relationship that occurs. And when you develop that relationship, it's no longer becomes a friend on Facebook. You basically get religious zealots. So the 2 things a fan wants most dramatically: access, exclusivity. If you can give an artist, if you can give a fan access to an artist and provide him with some level of exclusivity, hey, why don't you come down to my sound check? It'll just be us. We'll grab a pizza. If you're already a fan of that artist, you've now transferred, you've now activated him so that he will buy everything that you put out. He will tell his friends. That type of peer-to-peer recommendation is what we're going for. And there's other things that I tell my clients to help along with that, but we should make no mistake that this is not an easy thing. Okay, but there's other opportunities. There's publishing, and there's placements, and there's touring, and merch income. There's a lot of things that can be done, but you have to be focused, and you have to have a real crappy plan B.
Yeah.
You know, because if you're really committed to this, you're going to succeed. And now comes the real tough definition of success. What is success? Okay, well, I've changed the definition of success so that no longer is it dark side of the moon sales. Okay, that's unrealistic in today's market. So what is success? Success, in my definition, as I see it, is the ability for you to do what you love to do again. So let's say you love to perform. The ability for your success is the ability for you to do another show. And if we take enough of those agains and we put them together, we call that a career. Okay, that to me is success. Okay, notice it doesn't have anything to do with money. It doesn't have anything, you know, that's a different type of success that we may have abandoned because of the nature of the business model that the public is involved in right now. But if you like to write songs, you write more songs. If you like to perform, if you like to record, you do your next record. You know, that to me is a level of success that is or can be sustainable. So in our concept, less songs, greater frequency, evaluate public performance, treat it as a lab, understand that the public who are at your shows are a community. That's a niche. Within that niche, there's powerful purchasing power. Okay? Tremendous purchase power. All you have to do is activate it. And one of the great things about music, it is something that you can listen to repeatedly, you can enjoy repeatedly, and there's nothing else on the planet that's like it. And conversely, it's the only product that we consume prior to purchase.
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
So unlike anything else, you read a book, you got to buy it first. Go to a movie, you got to buy the ticket. Well, maybe a restaurant, you eat first and then pay, but you know what I mean. It's one of those things where we have to love music so much that even after we've listened to it for as many times as we want, we have to decide. And that begs the question whether or not ownership or access. That's a whole other, then we get into whether or not you really need to purchase anything if you have access to it. I like Music Xray because it gives me a wide range of, people that submit stuff. I like because I'm not typecast into what the one specific type of music I like. I tend to really enjoy listening to all types of stuff. And I'm not afraid to tell somebody, I like this, please contact me. Here's my email address. I'm not afraid to do that. Within the context of my reply, I've been spending many years doing evaluations of material, and I think there's a very definite way of writing a critique so that it's uplifting at the same time it's being constructive, right? Because most people don't really understand what it means to write it or create a good song. You can't just buy a piece of gear. It's really has to be heartfelt, and I find that most people don't understand how much work, how much effort, how much sacrifice it takes to be really shitty. Because if they knew how much it took to be really shitty, then they might know how much it takes to be really great. And I love Music Xray because I can get a sense of that. I can get a sense of how committed these people are, and you can, after a while, you can get a sense where people are afraid when they're singing. Whether they're singing tentatively, whether they're not committed to the lyric, whether they're afraid of the process. So those are instances, not necessarily problems, but I can hear it in the first 10 seconds. The impulse to be perfect in a recording session is the worst thing that could happen to any singer, because how long does it take to re-record a 4-minute song? Not very long, but you have to be able to make big mistakes and not worry about perfection, right? So when I get the material, even to listen to stuff, because I do this, one of the programs is you just listen, you don't critique, you just fill out the little. So you basically can hear a bunch of different things. People will sometimes do whole albums worth of material, but other times I just love the idea that there's just such a wide range, and I can have instant access to so many different types of wonderful artists. The idea is every one of these people has a dream. I should not be the one to stand in the way to dash that dream. However, I also believe that you have to understand what the art and the craft of making music is all about. And, I love talking to these people. I'm much more of a talker than a typer, unfortunately. But I love talking to the people, and, I get into it. I'm really, I get into the lyric. I get into the melody line. I get into the structure. I get into all those things. And I want those people to win.